On a stormy night, a night baker pulls a bleeding stranger from the alley. He's the king of the city, cold, deadly, and he makes a vow that sounds like a threat until he hides in her tiny apartment and offers protection she can't afford to refuse. But the mark on her door says she's now a target. A split coin appears. A secret ledger surfaces. She's not just a witness. She's the key to the city's frozen pier, the artery everyone wants. The boss moves her into his fortress. Cameras, guards, a locked room with a ghost. Heat builds where it shouldn't, until a video drops. A hostage screams and a traitor inside his house smiles. Now the hunter must choose. Break his vow, or watch her be sold, piece by piece. If his touch saves her once, will it damn them both? Who's the enemy standing closest? And when a king finally reaches for his queen, how many bodies will the city count before dawn? The acrid smell of smoke still clung to Harper's clothes as she knelt beside the wounded man, her hands trembling but steady enough to maintain pressure on his injury. The contrast between his tailored suit and the flour-dusted floor of her modest bakery's back room struck her as absurd. But there was nothing funny about the way Valerio Moretti's dark eyes fixed on her with predatory focus, despite his pallor. Thunder cracked again, and Harper flinched. The rain hammered against the windows with renewed fury, matching the pounding of her heart. She could hear the firefighters at the front of the building now, their voices muffled but urgent. "The fire's mostly out," she said, keeping her voice low. "But they'll want to check everything. I can tell them you're not here, but—" "No." His voice was quiet but carried the weight of command. "Let them in. Act normal." Each word seemed to cost him effort, but his gaze never wavered. Harper nodded, trying to project a calm she didn't feel. The makeshift bandage she'd fashioned from clean kitchen towels was already showing spots of red. "You need a doctor. My people will handle it." He shifted slightly, testing his limits, and a flash of pain crossed his features before disappearing behind an iron mask of control. "Your name?" "Harper Quinn. I'm the night baker here." She glanced at the alley door as another shadow passed. "Someone's out there." Moretti's hand moved to where his gun should have been, finding empty air. His jaw tightened. "Phone!" She pulled her old flip phone from her apron pocket. He took it with blood-stained fingers, typing a number with practiced efficiency despite his condition. The call connected instantly. "Location compromised. Back room of Quinn's Bakery on Porto Street. Send cleanup medical, 5 minutes." He ended the call and handed the phone back. "When they break down the front door, go to them. Report the fire. Nothing else." The command in his tone made her bristle slightly. "I know how to keep quiet, Mr. Moretti." A ghost of something, maybe surprise, flickered across his face. "You know who I am." "Everyone knows who you are." Harper stood, wiping her hands on her already ruined apron. "Stay still. The bleeding's slowing, but movement will start it again." The pounding at the front grew more insistent. Harper could hear the fire chief shouting now. She took a deep breath, smoothing down her hair. "Wait." Moretti's voice stopped her. "Why help me?" Harper turned back, meeting those dangerous eyes. "Because you needed it. Sometimes it's that simple." She left him there, hurrying through the smoke-hazed kitchen to the front. The moment she unlocked the door, firefighters burst in, bringing the smell of rain and urgency with them. Harper played her part perfectly. The frightened baker who'd handled a grease fire, answering questions about the building's layout, pointing out where the flames had been worst. They insisted on checking every room, but when they reached the back, it was empty. No sign of blood, no trace of Moretti, only flour dust and water on the floor. The black car was gone from the curb, too. The fire chief praised her quick thinking with the flour, wrote up his report, and left her with a warning about the friar's age. Harper stood in the ruined kitchen, adrenaline finally fading, leaving her shaky. She'd just saved the life of the most dangerous man in Porto San Andrea, and someone had tried to kill him right outside her door. The cleanup took hours. Harper scrubbed floors, aired out smoke, and tried not to jump at every shadow. By dawn, the bakery almost looked normal, though the smell of smoke lingered. She was exhausted, but couldn't stop moving, couldn't stop thinking about blood on her hands and those intense eyes studying her. The morning baker arrived at 6, exclaiming over the mess. Harper gave him the sanitized version of events, gathered her things, and stepped out into the gray morning. The storm had passed, leaving puddles that reflected the lightening sky. She made it 3 steps before noticing the sleek black car idling across the street. A man in an impeccable suit stood beside it, looking completely out of place in this working-class neighborhood. When he saw her, he opened the rear door. "Miss Quinn, Mr. Moretti would like to speak with you." It wasn't really a request. Harper's feet felt heavy as she crossed the street, her mind racing through options she didn't really have. The car's interior was leather and luxury, with tinted windows that shut out the world. The man who'd been bleeding on her floor 6 hours ago sat opposite her, looking impossibly composed in a fresh suit. Only a slight stiffness in his posture betrayed his injury. His presence filled the space, making the car feel smaller. "Your intervention was appreciated," he said, his voice stronger now but still quiet. "However, it creates complications." "I won't tell anyone," Harper said quickly. "I know." The certainty in his tone sent a chill down her spine. "But others may have seen. The person who attacked me may have seen, which means you're now involved, whether either of us wants that." Harper's hands clenched in her lap. "I was just trying to help." "Sometimes it's not that simple." He echoed her earlier words with a hint of irony. "You'll be protected, Miss Quinn, but there will be changes." The car pulled away from the curb, carrying Harper away from her familiar world and into whatever dark reality she'd stumbled into when she opened that alley door. Steam curled from Harper's chipped coffee mug, carrying the scent of cinnamon through her tiny kitchen. Morning light filtered through threadbare curtains, casting shadows on the man who'd nearly bled out in her bakery just hours ago. Valerio Moretti sat at her wobbly table, his expensive suit jacket draped over the back of a mismatched chair. Even wounded, he commanded the space, making her cramped apartment feel smaller. The guard who'd slipped in before dawn, Ettore, stood like a statue beside him, sharp eyes taking in every detail of her worn linoleum and secondhand furniture. "Sweep the building," Valerio ordered, his voice rough like ground glass. "Stay outside the door." Ettore nodded and disappeared silently. Harper focused on pouring a second cup of coffee, trying to ignore how surreal this moment felt. The most feared man in Porto Sant'Andrea, sitting in her kitchen while the coffee maker sputtered its last drops. "Your assistance last night was—" Valerio paused, as if unused to expressing gratitude. "Appreciated." Harper set the coffee before him, noticing how he tensed slightly when her hand came near. "You needed help. That's all." "Nevertheless." He lifted the mug, studying the chip in its rim. "The bakery suffered damage. I can cover the repairs immediately. And your other financial concerns, the student loans, the medical bills from your father's treatment, those can be managed." Harper's spine stiffened. "You looked into my finances?" "I look into everything that touches my world." His dark eyes met hers. 24 hours. That's all I need to confirm which faction leaked my route last night. In exchange, your debts disappear." "No." Harper's voice came out stronger than she felt. "I don't make deals with the devil?" A ghost of amusement crossed his face. "Wise policy. I helped you because it was right, not for payment." "Then no bargain." He set down the coffee. "Only a promise. You'll be protected while I heal. No conditions." Harper retrieved the fresh bandages she'd bought at dawn, gesturing for him to lift his shirt. The knife wound looked angry but clean. She'd done her best with what she had. As she wrapped the fresh gauze, she noticed his breathing had gone shallow, his muscles rigid. "Why do you look at me like that?" she asked before she could stop herself. "Like I'm dangerous." Silence stretched between them. When he spoke, his voice was flat, stripped of emotion. "I haven't touched a woman in 10 years. The confession hung in the air like smoke. Harper's hands stilled on the bandage, feeling the weight of what he'd revealed. He said nothing more, as if those words themselves were a risk he shouldn't have taken. The day crawled by in a haze of tension. Harper tried to keep busy, but her tiny apartment felt claustrophobic with Valerio's presence. He worked from his phone, speaking in low tones to unseen contacts while she stress-baked with her limited supplies. The smell of fresh bread almost made things feel normal, until the calls started coming. First, the city inspectors. The bakery was closed pending investigation. Then her landlord, his voicemail dripping with false concern about liability issues and hints of eviction if repairs weren't immediate. Harper's hands shook as she deleted the messages. "I need to check on the bakery," she said finally. "Make sure nothing was stolen." Valerio's eyes narrowed. "Take Ettore." The silent guard shadowed her through the gray evening streets. The bakery looked abandoned already, windows dark and empty. Harper unlocked the back door, then froze. Spray paint marred the metal surface, a crude skull in dripping red, her name beneath it like an accusation. The paint was fresh, still gleaming in the fading light. Ettore was already on his phone, speaking rapid Italian. Harper stumbled backward, her heart pounding. This wasn't random vandalism. This was a message. She barely remembered the walk back to her apartment. Valerio was waiting in the kitchen, his face carved from stone, as Ettore reported in swift, quiet words. Harper's hands wouldn't stop shaking. Valerio crossed to her in 2 smooth steps, taking a paper napkin from her counter. He folded it with precise movements, then wrapped it around her trembling fingers. His touch was careful, clinical, but she felt the tension thrumming through him. "You're coming with me now." His voice was calm, certain. "Whoever left that mark just declared you a message, and I don't leave messages unanswered." Harper stared at their hands, his darker skin against her pale fingers, the crisp white napkin between them like a barrier. "I can't just leave. My job, my apartment. Your life matters more." He released her hands and stepped back. "Pack what you need. 10 minutes. Ettore materialized with a sleek duffel bag. Harper moved through her apartment in a daze, grabbing clothes and essentials, her childhood photos, her mother's recipe book. Her hands still shook as she zipped the bag. Through the thin walls, she heard more people arriving. Quiet footsteps, murmured conversations. Valerio's world closing in around her. When she emerged, 3 more suits had joined Ettore in her living room. They moved with military precision, checking sightlines, securing exits. Valerio stood by her kitchen window, phone pressed to his ear, his profile sharp against the gathering dark. "The car's ready," Ettore said quietly. Harper looked around her small apartment one last time. The mismatched furniture, the cramped kitchen where she'd learned to bake, the safe haven that no longer felt safe. Everything was changing because she'd opened that alley door. Valerio ended his call and turned to her. In the fading light, his eyes were bottomless. "Time to go!" The convoy sliced through the rain-slick streets, headlights cutting silver paths through the darkness. Harper sat rigid in the back seat of the lead SUV, her duffel clutched tight against her chest. Water drummed against the bulletproof glass, turning the sidewalks into sheets of black mirror. Ettore rode shotgun, his profile stern as he scanned the empty streets. Behind them, a second SUV maintained a precise block-long buffer, while a third brought up the rear. The formation moved like a well-oiled machine, synchronized turns and measured distances, speaking of countless rehearsals. Valerio sat beside Harper, his voice low and steady as he issued commands through an earpiece. Each word carried the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. "Double the watch at the pier, full sweep of the warehouse district. I want eyes on every dock worker who touched that shipment." The city fell away as they climbed toward the sea cliffs. Harper watched familiar neighborhoods blur past, each turn taking her further from the life she knew. The rain intensified, sheets of water cascading down the steep streets. "The arrangement is simple," Valerio said finally, removing the earpiece. "You'll be under my personal protection until I find the leak and eliminate the threat. You owe me nothing. I expect nothing, except that you listen when I say move. Your safety depends on it." Harper nodded, her throat tight. "How long?" "As long as necessary." His tone left no room for argument. The convoy wound higher, following a private road that hugged the cliffside. Through the rain, Harper caught glimpses of the churning sea below, waves crashing against the rocks. The road ended at massive iron gates that parted silently at their approach. The fortress rose before them, all stone walls and iron-wrapped balconies. Ancient meets modern. Security cameras nestled in medieval crenellations, motion sensors hidden in climbing vines. Every window faced the rough water, as if the house itself was standing guard. Ettore led them inside, through a grand entrance hall that echoed with their footsteps. The interior was a study in controlled luxury. Leather, marble, and dark wood, everything gleaming but somehow untouched, like a museum after hours. "The guest suite," Ettore announced, opening double doors on the 2nd floor. The room was larger than Harper's entire apartment, with a sitting area and a bathroom that could fit her kitchen. But it was the view that stole her breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the angry sea, waves throwing themselves against the cliff base far below. "Make yourself comfortable," Valerio said. "Ettore will show you the security protocols." Harper set her bag down, trying to ground herself in this surreal situation. As Ettore walked her through panic buttons and safe rooms, she noticed other suites along the corridor, all pristine, all looking untouched for years. And at the top of the curved stairs, a single door with a biometric lock. Later, After Ettore left, Harper found Valerio in the kitchen. He stood at the window, watching the storm rage outside. The question burned in her throat until she couldn't hold it back. "The vow you mentioned, 10 years without—" She trailed off, unsure how to finish. His shoulders tensed, but he didn't turn. "A woman died because of me, because I allowed myself to care. After that, I rebuilt everything, my organization, my territory, my life. Clean of softness, clean of weakness." Each word fell like stone. "Sentiment is a luxury I cannot afford." Harper absorbed this, reading the grief carved into his stance. "And yet you're protecting me." "Yes." The single word held volumes of conflict. The kitchen fell silent except for the storm's fury. Harper retreated to her suite, trying to process how her life had shifted so dramatically in 24 hours. She was pulling out her pajamas when her old phone chirped. The message came from an unknown number. Harper's hands shook as she opened it. A photo of the burned bakery, timestamp from an hour ago. Below it, 4 words that turned her blood to ice. Next, the girl. She wasn't aware of moving, but suddenly Valerio was there, taking the phone from her trembling fingers. He studied the screen, face hardening to granite, then passed it to Ettore, who materialized in the doorway. "Trace it," he ordered quietly. Ettore vanished with the phone. Valerio turned to Harper, his eyes dark with contained fury. "You cannot return to your apartment. The city just learned you matter to me." He spoke each word with careful precision. "That makes you either valuable or vulnerable, depending on who's watching." "I matter to you?" Harper meant it as a challenge, but her voice wavered. Something flickered across his face, too quick to read. "You saved my life. That creates a debt I take seriously." He moved to the window, scanning the darkness beyond. "More importantly, you've been drawn into a power play you don't deserve. I protect what's mine." "I'm not yours," Harper said softly. "No," he agreed, still watching the night. "But you're under my protection. That's enough to make you a target." Lightning split the sky, illuminating his profile in harsh white light. For a moment, Harper saw past the controlled exterior to the weight he carried. The constant vigilance, the isolation by choice, the burden of power that demanded everything soft be carved away. The thunder that followed shook the windows. Below, waves crashed against the cliff base, their fury matching the storm above. Harper wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the room's warmth. "Try to rest," Valerio said, moving toward the door. "The fortress is secure. Ettore. We'll be in the hall and I'll be upstairs if you need anything." Harper nodded, watching him go. As the door closed behind him, she sank onto the edge of the massive bed, her world tilted on its axis. Outside, the storm raged on, but in here, in this stone fortress with its iron gates and watchful guardians, she was caught in the eye of a different kind of tempest. Dawn hadn't yet touched the horizon when Harper found herself in the fortress's kitchen. The industrial-grade appliances gleamed in the dim light, a stark contrast to her tiny bakery. Her hands moved on autopilot, measuring flour and yeast, the familiar motions grounding her in this unfamiliar space. The night crew, 4 men stationed at various points around the property, had been awake for hours. She'd heard their quiet movements, seen their shadows pass the windows. They deserved something warm. As she worked, the kitchen transformed. Sterile surfaces became dusted with flour, the air heavy with the scent of proofing dough and melting butter. She folded cinnamon and brown sugar into the spirals, letting muscle memory guide her through the comfort of creation. The first batch had barely left the oven when footsteps echoed in the hallway. Valerio appeared in the doorway, his clothes dark with pre-dawn mist. A gun holster peeked from beneath his jacket. He'd been checking the grounds himself. His nostrils flared slightly at the scent filling the kitchen. For a moment, he looked almost human. "The night crew might appreciate these," Harper said, sliding a warm roll onto a plate. "If you think it's okay." He approached the counter cautiously, as if the pastry might bite. When he finally took a bite, something in his face shifted. The rigid control slipped just slightly, revealing a flash of simple pleasure he quickly tried to mask. "They're good," he said, voice rougher than usual. That's high praise from someone who probably has a personal chef. Had. He took another bite. "I prefer to prepare my own meals. Fewer variables." Harper distributed rolls to the grateful guards, then returned to find Valerio still in the kitchen, making coffee. The silence between them felt different, less sharp. "The room upstairs," she ventured carefully. "The locked one." His shoulders tensed, but he didn't shut down completely. Sophia's room. My fiancé. What happened? Car bomb, 10 years ago. He poured coffee with precise movements. It was meant for me. The evidence suggested she arranged it. Harper's hand stilled on the counter. Did she? I don't know. The doubt was enough. His voice went flat. Touch became complicated after that. Dangerous. I removed the variable entirely. And her room remains as it was, a reminder. Before Harper could respond, quick footsteps approached. A woman with close-cropped dark hair and multiple piercings strode in, tablet in hand. We've got movement, she announced, nodding briefly to Harper. Sable, she introduced herself. I handle digital security. She pulled up footage on the tablet. Rival soldiers testing routes along the coastal road, looking for patterns, weak points. Valerio studied the screen. All softness vanishing. Set up decoys. Double the patrols. They're getting bold. Throughout the day, Harper felt tension building in the fortress. More guards appeared, communications flew back and forth, and Valerio's expression grew increasingly thunderous as reports came in. By dusk, rain lashed the windows again. Harper stood on her balcony, watching headlights crawl along the coastal road below, a cluster of dark vehicles separated from the normal traffic, turning onto the private drive. Shouts erupted. Floodlights blazed to life. Harper's hands gripped the iron railing as Valerio emerged from the fortress, 5 men flanking him. They moved with lethal grace through the rain. What followed was both elegant and terrifying. Valerio's team split and flowed around the intruders like water, herding them away from civilian traffic. No shots fired. They didn't need them. Harper watched Valerio himself take down 2 men with economical violence, hands and elbows delivering precise strikes. In minutes, it was over. The rival crew was subdued, their vehicles already being towed away. Regular traffic continued flowing, oblivious to the brutal efficiency of what had just occurred. Harper's hands wouldn't stop shaking as she grabbed a towel and headed downstairs. She found Valerio in the entrance hall, rain dripping from his clothes, knuckles raw. He went still when she held out the towel. For a moment, neither moved. Then he accepted it with a quiet, "Thank you," carefully avoiding her eyes. Without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving a trail of seawater and rigid control in his wake. Harper stood in the empty hall, listening to his footsteps fade. The man who'd savored her cinnamon rolls that morning had vanished behind walls of discipline and distance. But she'd seen beneath the armor now, seen the human capable of simple pleasures, the wounded soul who'd locked away softness like a dangerous weapon. The fortress hummed with activity as guards reset positions and Sable coordinated cleanup. Harper returned to the kitchen, hands steady now, as she began another batch of cinnamon rolls. The night crew would need them after this. And maybe, just maybe, their scent would draw Valerio back from whatever dark place he'd retreated to. She worked in silence, letting the familiar motions soothe her. Outside, the storm continued its assault on the cliffs. Inside, the warm scent of cinnamon and yeast began to fill the hallways again, a gentle rebellion against the fortress's austerity. Ettore appeared briefly to check on her, his usual stoic expression softening at the sight of fresh pastries. He accepted one with a grateful nod before returning to his post. Through the windows, Harper could see the coastal road returning to normal, no sign remaining of the violence that had occurred. The contrast was dizzying. Brutal efficiency alongside mundane traffic, deadly skill wrapped in expensive suits, a man who could demolish threats with surgical precision but couldn't let himself feel the simple comfort of human touch. Harper understood now why Valerio had built these walls around himself. What she didn't know was whether anyone was meant to breach them. Harper crept through the fortress's shadowed halls at dawn, her heart hammering. The backpack felt heavy with her meager escape supplies. Wadded cash from her tip jar, the spare phone Sable had given her, and 2 sets of her baker's whites. Better to run now, before she drowned in Valerio's dangerous world. The garage stretched before her, steel and concrete silent in the early light. She'd memorized the guard rotations, knew this was her window. 3 more steps to the nearest car. She yanked open the driver's door and froze. On the black leather seat lay a silver coin, split cleanly in 2 as if by a laser. Beside it, a note in precise handwriting. "Run, and we'll make a lesson of you." "Looking for something?" Harper spun. Valerio emerged from the shadows, his expression unreadable. He wore a charcoal suit despite the hour, as if darkness itself had taken human form. "I can't stay here," she said, gripping the backpack strap. "Your world will eat me alive." "You're free to leave." His voice remained quiet, controlled. But I want to show you something first." She hesitated, then nodded once. He led her through the fortress to his office, a severe space of dark wood and leather, walls lined with books in multiple languages. He withdrew a thin file from his desk. "Your father," he said, spreading documents across the polished surface. He kept books for the Carbone family years ago. Creative man, hid sensitive ledgers where no one would think to look. Harper's throat tightened at the mention of her father. He'd died when she was 19, leaving only recipes and regrets. What does this have to do with me? "Look here." Valerio indicated a complex web of corporate transfers. "He set up a delayed succession. On your 25th birthday last month, ownership of several shell companies transferred quietly to your name, companies controlling the cold storage pier." The blood drained from Harper's face. The pier was the city's primary shipping artery. Half the port's money flowed through those warehouses. "The rival family," she whispered, "they don't want me as leverage against you." "No, they want control of those companies. You're the key they've been searching for." Harper sank into a leather chair, mind reeling. Her father's final gift was a death sentence. "Unless—" "I'll stay," she said finally. "Under your protection. But I won't be treated like baggage to be stored away. If my name is on those papers, I get a say in what happens with them." Valerio studied her for a long moment, something shifting behind his eyes. "Agreed. Anything involving your interests goes through you first." A knock interrupted them. Sable entered, tablet in hand, her usual sardonic expression replaced by intensity. "Found something interesting during the bakery sweep," she said. Old safety deposit box number scribbled on a recipe card. It was taped under the flour bin. She showed them a photo of the weathered card, familiar handwriting visible beneath flour stains. "My father's writing," Harper confirmed. "The box is still active," Sable added. "I've got coordinates." Valerio straightened, adjusting his cuffs. "We leave now. Harper, you'll need to come. The box is legally yours." As they prepared to depart, Harper noticed subtle changes in the fortress's rhythm. More guards appeared in tactical positions. Eder coordinated with other teams via earpiece. Even Sable's typing took on a sharper intensity. They moved in a 3-car convoy, Harper riding with Valerio while Sable monitored communications from the lead vehicle. The city crawled past their tinted windows. Early commuters, delivery trucks, fishing boats heading out to sea. Normal life continuing, oblivious to the power plays unfolding in their midst. Harper watched Valerio from the corner of her eye. He sat perfectly still, only his fingers moving as he sent rapid messages on a secure phone. The morning light caught the silver at his temples, the faint lines around his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and constant vigilance. "Why did you stop me?" she asked suddenly. "You could have let me run, dealt with the fallout later." He didn't look up from his phone. "Running wouldn't save you. It would only mean facing them alone." "Is that the only reason?" His fingers stilled. For a heartbeat, something raw flickered across his face before the mask slipped back into place. "We're here," he said instead of answering. The bank rose before them, all marble and brass, old money written in every line. Harper squared her shoulders as they exited the vehicle. Whatever waited in that safety deposit box, she'd face it standing tall. She might be trapped in this dangerous game, but she refused to be a passive piece on the board. Sable took point as they entered, her casual stance belying her alertness. Ettore and 2 other guards established a perimeter, while Valerio escorted Harper to the vault area. The bank manager, summoned by Valerio's name alone, hurried to assist them. As Harper followed the manager's precise instructions to access the box, she felt the weight of her father's choices pressing down. He'd tried to protect her through paperwork and shell companies, but he'd also tied her to this shadowy world forever. There would be no clean escape now. The box scraped against metal as the manager pulled it free. Harper's hands didn't shake as she accepted the key. Whatever secrets lay within, she would face them clear-eyed, with Valerio's dangerous protection at her back and her own strength holding her spine straight. The mahogany-paneled bank corridor echoed with their footsteps as Harper followed the manager to the vault. Early morning light filtered through high windows, casting long shadows across marble floors. Valerio's presence behind her felt like a shield, solid and watchful. The safety deposit box yielded 2 items: a leather-bound ledger with her father's precise handwriting filling its pages, and a thick envelope bearing official stamps. Harper's fingers trembled slightly as she opened the envelope, revealing transfer documents for the cold storage holding companies, all legally binding, all in her name. We'll review everything secure in the car, Valerio murmured, guiding her back through the empty bank. In the armored sedan, lunch appeared from somewhere. Fresh sandwiches and bottled water, the kind of efficient service that seemed to materialize around Valerio without notice. Harper opened the ledger across her knees while he explained the coding system her father had used. Here, these numbers represent shipment weights, he said, his finger tracking along a column. Dates are offset by 3 days, accounts are scrambled but follow a pattern. Harper absorbed the information quickly, her mind for numbers making connections. So these entries here, they're tracking parallel shipments, both families using the same infrastructure. Exactly. Valerio's approval was evident in his tone. Your father built a system that kept both sides running smoothly without direct contact. The pier's the keystone. Remove it and everything collapses. She studied the neat rows of figures with new understanding. Her father's legacy wasn't just numbers. It was a delicate balance that had kept the peace. That's why they want control so badly. And why we can't let them have it. By 3 o'clock, the first vultures began circling. Valerio's phone buzzed with a message that made his jaw tighten. They're offering a safe meeting to transfer ownership to the Carbone family, Sporta, he told her, trying to make it sound routine, just signatures and notaries. And if I refused, they wouldn't take no for an answer. His dark eyes met hers. We're moving you to the inner rooms. My personal guard will rotate shifts. The fortress's inner sanctum felt different from the guest wing, warmer somehow, with subtle signs of actual living rather than mere occupation. Photos in simple frames, a shelf of well-worn books, a kitchen that showed regular use. Harper noticed more guards now, moving with practiced precision through their rotations. Ettore coordinated them quietly, establishing overlapping patterns of protection that centered on her new location. Unable to sleep, she wandered into the kitchen at 2 a.m., finding Valerio already there. He sat at the island counter, reading glasses perched on his nose as he reviewed security reports. The soft light caught the silver in his hair, softening his usual sharp edges. "Baker's hours," she said by way of greeting. He looked up, something warming in his expression. "Old habits?" "The quiet helps me think." She began gathering ingredients, the familiar motions soothing. "When did you start your early mornings?" "Military school, then business school, then—" He gestured vaguely at his empire. "All this, discipline becomes its own comfort." "The wanting nothing part," she asked, remembering his earlier words about building his life clean of softness. "Wanting creates vulnerability." He watched her measure flour with precise movements. "But you understand that. The discipline of it. Every recipe exact, every morning the same routine." "Except sometimes," Harper said, dusting flour from her hands. "The routine changes? Sometimes the kitchen catches fire, and a stranger bleeds in your back room, and suddenly nothing is the same." Their eyes met across the counter, acknowledgement passing between them of how quickly their worlds had entangled. "Dance with me," he said suddenly, standing. "There's no music. We don't need it." He drew her into the circle of his arms, one hand settling at her waist, the other clasping hers. They moved in slow circles under the kitchen lights, finding a rhythm in shared silence. Harper let her cheek rest against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. For a moment, all the complications fell away. No rival families, no inherited dangers, just two people moving together in the quiet hours before dawn. She felt his breath catch, felt the slight tremor in his hands as the dance slowed. Then he stepped back, something raw and hungry in his eyes, before he mastered it. "Good night, Harper," he said, voice low and slightly rough. He left the door ajar as he went, letting in a thin slice of hallway light. Harper stood in the kitchen, flour still on her hands, feeling the phantom pressure of his arms around her and understanding that some kinds of wanting couldn't be disciplined away. The numbers in her father's ledger made more sense now. How systems could appear perfectly balanced on paper while concealing deeper currents. How the most dangerous debts were the ones that couldn't be measured in figures and accounts. She touched her cheek where it had rested against Valerio's chest, remembering the moment he'd pulled away. 10 years of refusing softness, yet he'd danced with her in the middle of the night. She wondered what other rules might bend, what other walls might crumble, in the dangerous space between what they were supposed to be and what they were becoming. The kitchen still held traces of their shared moment. 2 coffee cups on the counter, the faint scuff marks on the floor where they'd turned together, the door standing deliberately not quite closed. Small details that spoke of barriers already breaching, of discipline already fraying at the edges. The morning brought a semblance of routine that felt both strange and necessary. Sunlight streamed through tall windows into the fortress's small library where Sable had commandeered a corner desk, turning it into a command center of laptops and monitors. The quiet tap of keys filled the room as Harper transferred her father's cramped handwriting into neat digital columns. Valerio worked nearby, his presence both distracting and oddly comforting as he moved through stacks of legitimate paperwork. His fountain pen scratched across contracts, maintaining the careful facade of legal enterprise that sheltered his true operations. Occasionally their eyes would meet across the room, last night's dance hovering in the charged space between them. "These shipping manifests," Harper said, breaking the comfortable silence. "The numbers don't match the reported tonnage." "That's where they hide the real cargo," Sable explained, rolling her chair closer. "Your dad was clever with his coding system." The morning passed in this strange domesticity until a sharp knock interrupted their work. Ettore entered with a small package, his expression taut. "Courier delivery for Ms. Quinn. It's been scanned." The velvet box sat innocent on the desk. Harper's fingers trembled slightly as she opened it. Inside, nestled in black silk, lay the missing half of the coin from yesterday's warning. A note accompanied it, printed in cold block letters. 48 hours to sign over the pier, or watch your new friend bleed. Attached was a video file. The footage showed Sable, the real Sable, bound to a metal chair in what appeared to be an abandoned warehouse. A timestamp from that morning blinked in the corner. Blood matted her dark hair where they'd struck her. "When?" Valerio's voice cut like steel. "Must have been during her coffee run," Ettore said. "The cafe cameras show her leaving, but she never made it to her car." Valerio's jaw hardened to granite. His phone appeared in his hand, fingers flying as he activated protocols and rallied teams. Harper watched his efficiency with a mix of fear and fascination. This was the man who'd held her so carefully just hours ago, now orchestrating a war response in seconds. "I'm coming with you," Harper said when he moved toward the door. He turned back, ready to refuse, but she held up the note. "This threat came to me, my name, my friend, my responsibility." Something shifted in his expression, respect warring with protective instinct. Finally, he nodded once. "Stay close to Ettore." The marketplace sprawled empty under the afternoon sun, shops closed early at Valerio's quiet suggestion. Harper watched from behind a stone column as the rival lieutenant strode into the open square, flanked by 4 men. The public location was clever. Too many windows for snipers, too many escape routes to block. The negotiation started civil enough, words exchanged in low voices that didn't carry. Then movement erupted from a side alley. A boy, barely 16, with a gun that shook in his grip as he pressed it to Harper's throat. Time suspended. She felt the cold metal, saw Valerio's hand tighten on his own weapon, heard the lieutenant's satisfied chuckle. "Please," Harper whispered, not to her captor, but to Valerio. She saw the war in his eyes, the instinct to eliminate any threat to her, warring with something newer, something she'd awakened. The gun cracked once. The bullet struck pavement inches from the boy's feet. He ran, stumbling and pale, as Valerio lowered his weapon. "You're getting soft, Moretti," the lieutenant sneered. "I'm evolving," Valerio replied. "Now, about our hacker." The exchange that followed was quick and brutal. Within an hour, they had Sable's location and a team moving in to extract her. By nightfall, she was safe in the fortress's medical wing, cursing colorfully as the doctor stitched her scalp. Harper found Valerio in his office later, staring out at the storm that had plagued the coast all week. Lightning illuminated the rigid line of his shoulders, the careful distance he maintained even now. She crossed the room slowly, giving him time to retreat. He didn't move. When she reached him, her hand found his cheek, turning him to face her. His eyes held such hunger, such careful restraint. This time she kissed him first. The dam broke. 10 years of denied touch crashed through him as he pulled her closer, his kiss desperate and deep. She answered with equal need, hands fisting in his shirt as thunder rolled overhead. "Harper," he breathed against her mouth, her name both warning and prayer. "I choose this," she whispered back. "I choose you." They made their way to his bedroom in stages, unwilling to break contact. Each kiss was an exploration, each touch a rediscovery of sensation. He undressed her with trembling reverence, as if she might dissolve under his hands. When she reached for him in return, his breath caught. "It's been so long," he admitted roughly. "Then we'll go slow," she promised, drawing him down to the bed. They took their time, learning each other's bodies with gentle curiosity that built to consuming need. His hands mapped her curves with wonder. His mouth traced paths that made her gasp and arch. She discovered the places that made him shudder, the soft sounds he made when pleasure overwhelmed control. When he finally moved inside her, it was with aching tenderness that gradually gave way to deeper hunger. They found their rhythm together, thunder punctuating their shared breaths, until release claimed them both in waves of shuddering bliss. After, they lay tangled in sheets and afterglow, her head on his chest while his fingers traced lazy patterns on her skin. The storm that had haunted the coast for days was finally moving offshore, taking its shadows with it. For the first time in years, neither of them dreamed of death or betrayal. They slept wrapped in each other's arms, while the fortress stood quiet guard and the sea air cleaned itself of rain. Dawn crept through the fortress windows in thin, gray fingers. Harper stirred against Valerio's chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart beneath her cheek. His fingers traced idle, patterns on her shoulder, but tension threaded through his touch. "What's wrong?" she whispered, not lifting her head. The silence stretched until she thought he wouldn't answer. Then his voice came, low and raw. "I need to tell you something. About before. About her." Harper shifted to look at him, seeing the shadows in his eyes. His jaw worked as he stared at the ceiling. "Marina," he said finally. "That was her name. We were engaged for 8 months. I thought—" He broke off, swallowing hard. "I thought I knew her completely." Harper waited, her hand resting over his heart. The bomb was sophisticated, professional grade, but the trigger— His voice turned harsh. The trigger was activated from inside the car. Her phone showed the signal. The evidence pointed to her working with Carbone's people, setting me up for months. "You believed it?" Harper said softly. "I had to. The alternative was that I missed something obvious, that my blindness got her killed." His fingers tightened on her skin. "So I made myself untouchable. No more weakness, no more trust. I built walls and called it strength." Harper pressed closer, offering warmth against his confession. "And now you've walked through every wall like they're made of air." A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. "And I'm terrified it makes you a target." She was forming a response when the door burst open. Sable stood there, wild-eyed and bloodied, her usual composure shattered. "Those idiots got sloppy with the restraints," she spat, limping into the room. "But that's not important. I know who sold you out." Valerio sat up sharply, keeping Harper behind him. "Tell me." "Ettore." The name fell like a stone. It was always Ettore. He's been playing both sides for years, feeding your roots to enemies, then brokering deals to end the conflicts he created. The paper trail goes back to before Marina. Harper felt Valerio go absolutely still, the predator's stillness she'd first seen in the bakery alley. "Show me," he said. In Sable's makeshift command center, screens filled with shipping manifests and account transfers, shell companies, weapons deals, suspicious timing on intelligence leaks. A pattern emerged of careful chaos, all orchestrated by the man who stood at Valerio's right hand. "He's in the armory now," Valerio said, his voice carved from ice, "doing inventory on my orders." "I'm coming with you," Harper said firmly. He turned to her, ready to refuse, but she cut him off. "This betrayal put me in danger too. I deserve to see it ended." After a long moment, he nodded. "Stay behind the support column with Sable, no matter what happens." The armory lay beneath the fortress, all steel and concrete. Ettore looked up as they entered, his face a mask of practiced deference. "Sir, is something wrong? You tell me." Valerio's voice was terrifyingly calm. "Tell me about Marina." Something flickered in Ettore's eyes, too fast to name. "Sir, tell me how you arranged it. How you planted the evidence on her phone. How you made me believe she betrayed me so I'd cut myself off from everything human." "I served the Empire," Ettore said, dropping the mask. His voice turned fever-bright. "You were too soft then, too willing to negotiate. A king needs war sometimes, needs blood to remind his enemies why they fear him. And the profit you skimmed? The weapons you sold to both sides? Business opportunities." Ettore's smile turned sharp. "Someone had to capitalize on the chaos. You used Marina's death to manipulate me for a decade. I used everything. That's what good lieutenants do." Ettore's gaze shifted to the column where Harper stood. "And now you're soft again. Vulnerable again. Because of her. History repeats." Valerio's hand moved toward his weapon. The window exploded. The sniper round punched through glass and concrete, sending everyone diving for cover. In the chaos of shattering debris, Ettore moved like a snake. He rolled behind a weapons rack, emerged with Harper's father's ledger and the peer deed envelope. When had he gotten those? And vanished through a maintenance door. By the time the glass stopped falling, he was gone. Valerio helped Harper up, checking her for injuries with gentle hands that belied the fury in his eyes. "Are you hurt?" "No," she said, brushing dust from his sleeve. "But he has the documents. We'll find him." Valerio's voice held absolute certainty. "Sable?" Already tracking his phone and vehicle signatures, Sable called from behind a cabinet. "He won't get far." Harper touched Valerio's face, making him look at her. "This doesn't make you weak," she said firmly. "Caring about people isn't weakness. It's what makes us human." For a moment, the mask cracked. Raw pain showed through before he got it under control. "I let him use Marina's death to twist me into something cold. I let him win." "No." Harper's voice was steel. "He used your grief to manipulate you. That's on him, not you, and now we're going to make it right." Valerio pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. Around them, his men secured the armory, swept for additional threats, began the methodical process of hunting a traitor. But for that moment, they held each other in the dust and broken glass, finding strength in the very connection Ettore had tried to destroy. Alarms shrieked through the fortress, their wail bouncing off stone walls. Valerio's grip was iron around Harper's wrist as he yanked her behind a reinforced door, his other hand already pressing his earpiece. "South stairwell, now! Full lockdown!" His voice cut through the chaos with brutal efficiency. "I want eyes on every exit." Guards flooded the hallway, their boots thundering against marble. Through the chaos, Harper caught fragments of radio chatter. "Negative visual on target. Checking basement access. Pier cameras activated." The shot was planned, Harper realized, still tasting concrete dust. He needed the confusion to get out. "Clean, yes." Valerio's jaw clenched. "Ettore knows every escape route. He helped design them." Sable's fingers flew across her phone. "The safe house route is blown. He's already leaked it to his people." Change of plan. Valerio pulled out a set of keys Harper had never seen. "We move now. Different vehicle. The tunnel." The fortress's garage held dozens of luxury cars, but Valerio bypassed them all for an unremarkable gray hatchback tucked in the corner, the kind of car no one would look at twice. "In," he ordered, already sliding behind the wheel. Sable dove into the back with her laptop as Harper buckled up front. The car descended through hidden service roads carved into the cliffs, eventually entering a massive tunnel that ran beneath the entire promontory. The air grew thick with salt and diesel fumes. "Got a ping," Sable announced, her screen casting blue light across her focused face. "That tracker you slipped into the box, it's moving toward the pier complex." Harper remembered dropping the tiny device into the velvet box's lining before they left the library, just in case. Her hands had been shaking, but she'd managed it. "Good instinct," Valerio said quietly, taking a sharp turn that brought them deeper under the city. The tunnel's exit emerged near the industrial sector, far from the tourist docks. Twilight painted everything in shades of gray and purple, the air heavy with coming rain. Cargo containers loomed like sleeping giants. They found the warehouse easily enough, the only building with its lights off, but a truck idling outside. Too easy, Harper thought, but didn't say it. Valerio parked in the shadow of a container stack. 3 minutes, as he said, checking his weapons. "I'll clear the perimeter and signal when it's safe to move. If anything feels wrong, we run," Sable finished. "We know the drill." He touched Harper's cheek once, brief but fierce, then melted into the shadows between buildings. Harper counted seconds, watching her breath fog the window. The sea wind rattled loose metal somewhere nearby. 2 minutes passed, then 2.5. She reached for the gear shift, planning to inch the car back just slightly, get a better view of the warehouse entrance. The world exploded. Another truck slammed into them from the right, the impact throwing Harper against her seatbelt hard enough to steal her breath. Glass sprayed across her lap. The hatchback spun, tires screaming. Before they could recover, the doors were wrenched open. Hands grabbed at Harper, rough hands and black gloves. She fought, clawing and kicking, but someone yanked her arms behind her back. Beside her, Sable went absolutely feral. She broke one attacker's nose with her laptop, then used his stumble to drive her elbow into another's throat. But there were too many. Harper saw the cloth bag coming, but couldn't dodge it. Rough fabric pulled over her face, blocking everything but muffled sounds. Sable cursing, feet scuffling, car doors slamming. Just before the bag covered her eyes completely, she saw Valerio sprinting back through the twilight, blade already drawn. The promise in his expression was terrible and beautiful. He would tear the city apart to find her. Then darkness took everything. Hands shoved her forward. She stumbled, trying to track directions through the disorientation. 10 steps. Turn right. Down what felt like a loading ramp. Someone's radio crackled. Primary package secured. Moving to. A wet crack cut off the transmission. Metal groaned somewhere ahead. A door opening? The hands pushed her again, forcing her to walk faster. The air changed, became enclosed and stale. Behind her, Sable was still fighting. The sounds of impacts and cursing grew fainter, separating them. Harper tried to turn toward her friend's voice, but the hands kept her moving forward. "Careful with that one," a new voice said. Ettor's voice, though different now. No more practiced deference, just cold command. "She's worth more than all of you combined." Harper's mind raced beneath the suffocating bag. They needed her alive to sign the peer transfer. That gave her leverage, gave her time. Valeria would come. She just had to stay alive and aware until then. More footsteps approached, boot heels clicking on concrete. "Get them both inside," Ettore ordered, "and someone deal with that mess in the yard. Our friend will be looking for blood trails." Harper cataloged everything she could sense, the temperature dropping as they moved deeper into what had to be the warehouse. The echoing quality of a large, empty space, the smell of fish and diesel fuel. Every detail might matter later. A door squealed open. The hands pushed her through it, then down onto what felt like a metal chair. Zip ties bit into her wrists and ankles. Still, they left the bag on, leaving her in artificial darkness. "Welcome to your new office, Ms. Quinn," Ettore said from somewhere to her left. "I do hope you're in a cooperative mood. Things will go much smoother if you are." Harper kept her breathing steady, refusing to show fear. Valeria was coming. She just had to be smart and stay alive. Heavy footsteps moved away, a door closed, and she was alone with the darkness and the sound of waves somewhere in the distance. The van doors slammed shut, plunging Harper into darkness that reeked of diesel and fish brine. The engine roared to life as rough hands secured her wrists with zip ties, tight enough to bite. Her shoulder slammed against the metal wall as they took the first turn at speed. Right turn. Harper counted in her head, using the internal clock that told her when Bread was ready to punch down. 30 seconds straight. Left turn, sharp enough to slide her across the ribbed floor. Another left that made the tires squeal. The split coin pressed against her thigh through her pocket. During a particularly hard bounce, she managed to work it free. Holding it awkwardly with bound hands, she dragged its edge along the floor. Seams. Tiny metal shavings caught the dim light filtering through the van's front window. A trail, however faint, was better than nothing. "Check her restraints," someone barked from the front seat. "Can't have her playing hero." Hands grabbed her ankles, adding more zip ties. Harper kept her breathing steady, like monitoring dough rise. Panic wouldn't help. She needed to stay sharp. Back at the crash site, Valerio stood amid broken glass and spilled blood, his blade dripping. 3 of Ettore's men lay crumpled nearby. They wouldn't be reporting back. His phone buzzed with lieutenants requesting permission to flood the streets. "No army," he ordered, voice liquid nitrogen. "One stray bullet and she dies. Lock down the city instead." His people moved like clockwork. Within minutes, the port froze. No ships in or out. Bank accounts linked to both families were seized. Every radio in the underground crackled with the same message. Ettore wanted alive, reward enough to retire on. Sable worked from the back of an unmarked van, her fingers flying across 3 keyboards. Traffic cameras, security feeds, dock manifests. She pieced together Harper's path like assembling a shattered mirror. "Got something," she called. 30 minutes in. Loading dock camera caught them moving her into the refrigerated storage under Pier 7. Her face went hard. "The one she owns." "They're using her property as the trap." Valerio studied the grainy footage. "How many inside?" "Heat sensors show maybe 12 bodies spread through the complex. Ettore's in the main office with someone else. Probably Massimo Carbone himself." Valerio checked his weapons with precise movements. "We go in lean, small team, no noise. The moment they hear an army coming, they'll panic and start shooting." In the freezer unit, Harper's breath clouded in front of her face. They'd cuffed her to a loading hook, high enough that her shoulders ached. The industrial fans pushed fog across the floor in ghostly waves. Through the thick walls, she heard voices from the office. Ettore's new cold tone. Another voice, louder and more theatrical, had to be Massimo Carbone himself. "The transfer needs her signature," Ettore was saying. "Willing signature, or the banks will flag it." Then convince her, Massimo answered. I don't care how, but I want that peer's deed clean and clear by morning. Harper tested her weight against the cuff, careful to make no sound. The broken edge of a wooden pallet strap lay just within reach of her foot. If she could drag it closer, work the sharp end against the plastic. Her mind flashed to Valerio's face that morning, the exact moment he'd promised to find her. 3 measured breaths, each one carrying the weight of a vow. The first, I will come for you. The second, nothing will stop me. The third, they will pay. The cold crept deeper into her bones. Harper kicked the pallet strap a few inches closer, moving in tiny increments. The freezer fans covered any sound. She just needed time and patience, skills every baker learned. Footsteps approached the freezer door. Harper went still, but kept counting breaths like measuring cups of flour, each one bringing Valerio closer, each one a promise kept. The massive door groaned open, letting in a blast of warmer air. Ettore stepped through the fog, followed by a man who had to be Massimo. Flashy suit, too much jewelry, the studied swagger of someone playing at power. Ms. Quinn, Massimo smiled, all teeth. I believe we have some paperwork to discuss. Harper met his gaze steadily, grateful for the cold that hid her shivering. Paperwork requires both hands, and a lawyer. Come now, he spread his hands. We're all business people here. The pier changes hands, you walk away wealthy, everyone wins. Except Valerio, she said. Massimo's smile tightened. Valerio's time is ending. Smart players choose the winning side. Like you did? Harper looked at Ettore. How long were you playing both sides, setting up Valerio to fight wars you engineered? I served the Empire, Ettore said flatly. Someone had to ensure we stayed strong. Valerio was going soft. Soft? Harper laughed, sharp and cold as the air around them. You really don't know him at all. Massimo stepped closer, dropping the friendly act. Sign the transfer, or we start removing fingers until you do. Your choice. Harper said nothing, just kept counting breaths. Somewhere in the city, Valerio was coming. She just had to be strong enough to wait. Through the fog, she watched Ettore check his phone and frown. Massimo's radio crackled with static and urgent whispers. Something was happening outside. The first breath, I will come for you. The second breath, nothing will stop me. The third breath, they will pay. Harper's foot inched closer to the broken pallet strap. Just a little more time, just a few more breaths. The pier loomed against the midnight sky, sodium lights casting sickly yellow pools across wet concrete. Wind howled off the bay, whipping waves against the pilings below. In the back of an unmarked car, Valerio methodically shed his suit jacket, the fabric whispering as it fell. His movements were precise as he checked the blade strapped to his thigh and the compact pistol at his back. 10 years of discipline had honed him into something lethal, a weapon made of silence and control. Stay on my signal, he told Sable, who sat hunched over her laptop in the passenger seat. If I'm not out in 20 minutes, we come in hot, she finished, not looking up from the thermal imaging feed. But you'll get to her first. Keep the outer team tight but invisible. Too many guns make corpses in close quarters. His voice was steel wrapped in velvet. I go alone. Stepping into the biting cold, Valerio became a shadow among shadows. The pier stretched before him like a throat waiting to swallow him whole. He moved with the practiced grace of a predator, each step calculated to avoid the cameras he'd memorized from the blueprints. The wind carried the tang of salt and diesel, but beneath it, he caught traces of industrial refrigerant. Following the scent, he read the subtle shifts in airflow that whispered of hidden doors and sealed corridors. A decade of refusing comfort had taught him to notice everything, every sound, every smell, every change in temperature that might signal danger. Near a loading bay, he found the first sign Harper had left, a faint metallic gleam in the seam of the floor panels. The split coin had scratched a delicate trail, visible only if you knew to look for it. His chest tightened with fierce pride. Even bound and hooded, she'd kept her wits. A scuffed corner of wall caught his eye. Height consistent with someone being dragged while fighting back? His fingers ghosted over the mark, reading the story written there in paint chips and desperation. The mesh gate to the freezer corridor loomed ahead, heavy chains rattling in the wind. Beyond it, industrial fans pushed clouds of fog through the storage units. The temperature dropped with each step, but Valerio barely noticed. His world had narrowed to the hunt. Movement flickered at the edge of his vision. One of Ettore's men, poorly concealed behind a stack of pallets. Valerio let himself be seen, hands raised slightly to show he was alone. "The boss wants to talk terms," the guard said, radio crackling at his belt. Valerio inclined his head. "Then let's not keep him waiting." The guard patted him down roughly, finding both weapons. "Boss says you can keep one blade if you surrender the gun. Show of good faith." A trap, obviously. But they thought allowing him a knife would level the playing field, forgetting that he was most dangerous within arm's reach. Valerio handed over the pistol without protest. "This way," the guard gestured, leading him deeper into the maze of refrigerated units. The corridor stretched ahead, emergency lights casting everything in bloody shades of red. Their footsteps echoed oddly, muffled by the constant drone of cooling fans. The air grew thick with fog, visibility dropping to mere feet. Through the haze, Valerio counted heartbeats, mapped positions based on subtle shifts in the mist, located threats by the whisper of fabric against metal and the almost imperceptible sound of someone trying very hard to be quiet. He could sense Harper now, her presence like a beacon through the artificial fog. The guard stopped at a heavy steel door, frost crackling around its edges. "In there," he said, stepping back, "but remember, one wrong move and she bleeds first." Valerio's only response was a slight nod that contained volumes of promised violence. As the door groaned open, he caught his first glimpse of the freezer unit's interior. Industrial hooks hung from the ceiling like metal stalactites. Fog rolled across the floor in ethereal waves. And there, a silhouette through the mist. Harper, cuffed high to one of the loading hooks. "Even from me?" Here, he could see the intelligent calculation in her stance. She wasn't just waiting to be rescued. She was planning. The soft scrape of plastic against metal reached his ears, nearly masked by the rhythmic hiss of the compressors. He recognized the sound of someone working against restraints, using the machinery's noise as cover. Through the fog, their eyes met. In that moment, volumes passed between them without a word. Trust, determination, a shared understanding of timing and opportunity. Harper's lips parted, and he read the shape of the word before she whispered it, timing it perfectly with the compressor's cycling hiss. Now. The word now crystallized into action. Valerio moved like liquid shadow, crossing the freezer floor in 3 silent strides. The first guard never saw the blade, just felt the hot slice across his wrist that sent his weapon clattering to the frost-slick floor. A second man rushed forward, and Valerio redirected that momentum straight into a metal storage rack with a bone-jarring crash. Harper yanked against her restraints, the rough edge of the pallet strap finally biting through the zip tie's weakened plastic. Blood made her skin slippery, and she twisted her wrist at an angle that sent white-hot pain shooting up her arm. But the cuff gave just enough. One hand pulled free, then the other. "The deed!" Massimo barked, lunging for the manila envelope perched on a nearby crate. "Grab it!" Harper didn't hesitate. She threw her shoulder into the corner of the heavy crate, driving it hard into Massimo's knees. He went down with a howl of pain, the envelope spinning from his grasp. With her foot, Harper sent it skidding beneath the lowest rack, watching it slide toward the drainage grate she'd noticed earlier while testing her bonds. Through the swirling fog, Ettore's voice carried like poison. "Look at you now, so desperate to save her. Remember when I made you believe your Elena betrayed you? How perfectly you broke, how beautifully you turned to ice." He circled, keeping distance between himself and Valerio's blade. 10 years of making you untouchable. 10 years of watching you kill your own heart. The perfect weapon. My perfect weapon. Valerio's expression never changed, but something ancient and terrible burned in his eyes. "Say it again," he said softly. "But this time, into your radio. Tell them all how you sold roots for profit and blamed a dead woman to keep me hollow." Ettore's laugh was ugly. "You think I care who knows now? I built an empire from your grief. His words cut off as Valerio closed the gap between them with terrifying speed, blade pressed to Ettore's throat. "The radio!" Valerio repeated. "Now." With trembling fingers, Ettore keyed his comm. His confession spilled out in broken phrases. The leaked routes, the staged evidence, years of manipulation for profit. The words echoed through every channel, reaching every ear in the city that mattered. As if triggered by that admission, the pier erupted with activity. Sable's team moved in precise formation, securing exits and neutralizing the outer guard ring. Emergency locks slammed into place throughout the facility, trapping everyone inside the killing ground Ettore had chosen. Ettore saw his chance dying and broke away, trying to disappear into the freezer fog. But Valerio had spent a decade learning to move through shadows. He caught Ettore in 4 steps, and the blade made a single clean arc through the air. It ended quietly. No dramatic last words, no drawn-out revenge, Just the final thud of a body hitting frost-covered concrete and the soft ping of blood drops freezing where they fell. The industrial fans kept churning fog through the unit as alarms began to wail. Police sirens grew steadily louder, their Doppler whine bouncing off the pier's metal walls. Harper's legs gave out as the adrenaline crashed, and Valerio caught her before she could fall. His arms were warm despite the freezer's chill, solid and real as he held her close. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of an oath. "No one will ever use you as a weapon against me again." His fingers traced the raw skin of her wrists with infinite gentleness. "No one will ever make you a message or a bargaining chip. I swear it." Harper pressed her face into his chest, breathing in the familiar scent of him beneath the metallic tang of violence. She believed him, not just because he'd proven it with blood, but because she'd watched him burn down his own carefully constructed walls to keep that promise. He'd destroyed the shadow he'd hidden behind for a decade, all to protect her light. The freezer door burst open as Sable led a tactical team inside, their boots crunching on the frost-rimed floor. "Building's secure," she reported crisply. "Police have been advised this was a federal operation. They'll process the scene without asking questions." Her eyes softened slightly as they fell on Harper. "Medical teams standing by topside." Valerio nodded once, already guiding Harper toward the exit. His arm never left her waist, supporting her trembling legs as they navigated around fallen bodies and overturned crates. The envelope with the pier deed lay forgotten by the drain, slowly soaking up blood-tinged meltwater. In the corridor, emergency lights still painted everything in shades of red, but the artificial fog was beginning to dissipate. Each step took them further from the killing ground, closer to the surface where dawn would soon break over the bay. Harper found herself counting those steps, using the rhythm to ground herself in the present moment rather than the echo of violence behind them. Sable's people moved with practiced efficiency, securing evidence and containing the scene. Their radios crackled with status reports and confirmation codes, building a wall of bureaucratic procedure between this night and tomorrow's official record. By morning, the truth would be buried in redacted files and classified briefings. But the real truth was simpler. A man had chosen love over vengeance, protection over power. He'd faced his darkest mirror and shattered it, not with rage, but with the quiet certainty that some things were worth more than empire or revenge. And in doing so, he'd finally laid his ghost to rest. The first rays of sunlight pierced the morning mist, casting long shadows across Porto Sant'Andrea's waterfront. Gulls wheeled overhead, their cries echoing off steel containers and concrete walls as Harper stood at the pier's edge, watching the harbor come alive. Her wrists still bore faint marks from the zip ties, but her hands were steady as she reviewed the paperwork Sable had prepared through the night. "Everything's in order," Sable said, pointing to highlighted sections. "The holding company structure is clean, fully legitimate. You'll maintain controlling interest while leasing operations to Valerio's logistics front at standard market rates." She smirked. Amazing what proper paperwork can accomplish. Harper signed where indicated, each stroke of the pen feeling like reclaiming a piece of herself. No surrender, no forced transfer, just smart business that happened to cut off rival access through proper channels and compliance requirements. Valerio stood slightly apart, his attention split between the documents and the perimeter, where his men maintained a subtle presence. He'd exchanged his blood-stained clothes for a fresh suit, but tension still rode his shoulders. Only when Harper finished the final signature did some of that rigidity ease. The morning unfolded in careful steps. They gave brief statements about a security incident, keeping details vague but establishing a paper trail that would withstand scrutiny. Harper noticed how Valerio handled each interaction with precision, ensuring their version of events became the official record. "There's something else," Harper said quietly as they walked the pier. "The boy from the marketplace. The one you spared. I want to make sure he has options beyond becoming another casualty." Valerio studied her face, then nodded once. Within an hour, arrangements were made for the teen to enter a dockworker apprenticeship program, a future bought with mercy rather than marked by a grave. By early afternoon, the pier hummed with activity. Harper had borrowed one of Valerio's sweaters, rolling up the two long sleeves before tying on a spare apron. She worked efficiently in the borrowed food cart, muscle memory taking over as she portioned dough and pulled perfect golden rolls from the portable oven. A line of dock workers formed, drawn by the scent of cinnamon and warm bread. Harper served each one with a smile, passing out rolls on squares of wax paper. Behind her, a simple chalkboard proclaimed Harbor Light in her neat handwriting, the name feeling right for this place where darkness had given way to dawn. 3 weeks, she said, making notes on a clipboard as Valerio joined her. We'll need expedited permits, contractor crews, and staff interviews. She'd already sketched a rough timeline. Health inspections on day 4, equipment delivery by day 10, training to begin on day 18. It will be handled, Valerio assured her, his hand settling warm against her lower back. His touch carried the same intensity as always, but now there was an openness to it, as if he'd finally stopped fighting his own instincts. Throughout the afternoon, Harper moved between practical tasks and moments of quiet planning. She interviewed potential staff members, reviewed equipment quotes, and worked with Sable to establish proper business accounts. Everything was documented, scheduled, and double-checked. No detail left to chance or shadow. The sun was setting when they finally made their way to what would become the cafe's second-floor office. Large windows faced the water, catching the last golden light as it painted the harbor in soft focus. Harbor light would occupy the ground floor, with the upper level split between office space and a private dining room for special events. Valerio moved to stand behind her at the window, his presence solid and sure. When he placed a small velvet box beside the new business ledger, Harper's breath caught. "You were never my weakness," he said, his voice low and certain. "You're the reason I can't be broken." His words carried the weight of absolute truth, stripped of all pretense. Harper turned and reached for his tie, using it to pull him down to her level. The kiss that followed was both an answer and a promise, deep enough to make the world beyond their windows fade to gentle blur. His hands framed her face with the same careful precision he brought to everything, but there was nothing restrained in the way he kissed her back. Word spread quickly through the port that night, passed in whispers and knowing looks. The king had not gone soft, but he had found his center. He remained lethal to threats, his reputation for controlled violence unchanged. But to Harper, he was something else entirely. Fiercely protective, impossibly tender, and absolutely devoted. Their future laid out in clean, steady steps. Harbor Light would open in 21 days, bringing legitimate business and fresh life to the pier. Lease payments would transfer automatically on the 1st of each month, everything documented and above board. And on the last Sunday of summer, just as dawn painted the harbor in gold, they would exchange vows on the same pier where they'd chosen each other over empire or escape. The evening settled into comfortable quiet as they reviewed plans and permits, Harper making notes while Valerio fielded calls from his network. Every so often, their eyes would meet across the desk, and the air would spark with shared understanding. They had built this future not despite the darkness, but through it, turning shadow into strength.